Hey guys, today we're going to do 13.1, Exploring Periodic Data. So our objectives are, I will be able to identify cycles and periods of periodic functions, and I will be able to find the amplitude of a periodic function. The essential understanding is periodic behavior is behavior that repeats over intervals of a constant length. First, some vocabulary. A periodic function is a function that repeats a pattern of y values or the outputs at regular intervals. One complete pattern in a periodic function is called a cycle. A cycle may begin at any point on the graph of the function. The period of the function is the horizontal length or the distance along our x-axis of one full cycle. The x value in a periodic function often represents time. Number 1, identifying cycles and periods. Analyze the periodic function below. Identify the cycle in two different ways. What is the period of the function? So we have a graph here, and we can begin at any one point and trace the graph until we get back to that point. So here, we have one cycle, or we can start at the x-axis. And we have the next cycle. So those are two different ways we can have a cycle. But please notice that our period remains the same. The first cycle starts at 2 and ends at 6. Here we have our first cycle starting at 8, ending at 12, making the period 4 in both cycles. So to find the period, we do the ending part, 5 minus the beginning, which is 4. Or we could have done 12 minus 8, which is 4. So our period is still 4. You can analyze the graph of a function to determine if the function is periodic. We have to remember that we are repeating y values. So in example A, is the function periodic? So even though the graph shows similar curves, our y values from that one section do not keep repeating. The y values are going down, therefore this is not periodic. Example B. If we pick a point on the line, and go to it again. Now, does this occur again? Since the patterns of the y values in one section repeat exactly in the next section, so as you can see the red and then the green, this is periodic. If you find points at the beginning and end of each cycle, like we did before, we have 0, 4 and 10, 4, we can subtract the x values to find the period. So here our graph would be 10 minus 0, which is equal to 10. So every 10 units is a period. Some more vocabulary for us. We have an amplitude of a periodic function, which measures the amount of variation in the function's values. We have a midline, which is the horizontal line midway between the maximum and minimum values of a periodic function. The amplitude is half the distance between the maximum and the minimum values of the function. Or the midline is the amplitude is from the midline to the maximum, or the midline to the minimum. So these would be amplitude. The midline is in the middle of our graph. So that yellow line. The maximum is the highest point, and the minimum is the lowest point. To find amplitude, we could do 1/2 times the maximum value minus the minimum value. So finding amplitude and midline of a periodic function. What is the amplitude of the periodic function at the right? What is the equation of the midline? So first, we are going to find the amplitude. We know that amplitude is equal to 1/2 times the maximum minus the minimum. So the amplitude is equal to 1/2 times the maximum value is 4 minus the minimum value, which is -2. So the amplitude is equal to 1/2 of 6, which is 3. Since the amplitude is 3, the midline is 3 down from the maximum. So 2, 3 would be the midline of this graph, and a horizontal line is y equals, so the value of that would be 1, because it would be 4 minus the amplitude, which is 3. So 4 minus 3 is 1. So our midline is y is equal to 1. Using a periodic function to solve a problem. Sound is produced by periodic changes in air pressure called sound waves. The yellow graph in the digital wave display at the right shows the graph of a pure tone from a tuning fork. What are the period and the amplitude of the sound wave? So if we look at the sound wave, we want to pick a point. So if we go from top to top, top to top, that is one cycle. It starts at 0.004 and ends at 0.008. So to find the period, we would do 0.008 minus 0.004, making our period 0.004. The maximum value of this graph, so this is 1, this is 2, is at 2.5, and the minimum is at 1.5. So 1/2 times 2.5 minus 1.5 is equal to 1/2 times 1, which is 1/2. So our amplitude is 1/2. That's all it asks us for. So to find the amplitude and the period, we just use the formulas that we were given before. That's all.